As you mentioned, I am, thank you for the introduction. I am Tom Howard. I am a cyber operator. What is that? What is that? It's not really relevant to here. Do things, but that's not what this talk is about. I recently gave this talk, a very similar version of this talk before. I gave it a couple times. I'm changing a little bit, giving you all some new material. Please stop me anytime you have questions. Just raise your hand. It's totally fine. I'll talk to you. If we get really far off topic, then we'll just like ignore you, keep going. But this is about social engineering. I'm going to do a quick overview during this talk on both the offensive and the defensive side. So like how you would use social engineering to get things you're trying to get. But I'm going to try to tailor and focus it mostly on how to defend yourself. It is kind of like a game of chess. I am not good at chess. I always get beat, but even by the simple computer. But when you're playing chess, you're not just playing defense or offense at any given time. You're always thinking about the next step ahead. So you're kind of doing both. It's very difficult in social engineering to disentangle the two and to think, oh, well, I'm just doing offense or I'm just doing defense. But in your day-to-day life, there are people who are going to be trying to scam you. There are people who are going to be trying to social engineer you. And in that case, it kind of is. You're just playing defense. You just don't know it, right? You have no idea that someone's trying to con you or they're trying to get something from you. And they know that they're being offense. Hopefully, some of the tools that I'll give you here today will help you identify these things and just be better. So that you'll see something and kind of get past there. Let's see here. Okay. I get my slides at work. All right. So first and foremost, please do not pretend to be a cop. I have to preface this with this whole thing because it's against the law in like every single state and probably most countries. Also, don't pretend if you decide, hey, I'm going to be a social engineer, a people hacker, I'm going to go do it. Don't pretend to be a judge. They don't like that. It's probably illegal. Don't pretend to be a lawyer. They really don't like it. That they like write the laws. Yeah, don't do that. So who am I? Any Unix nerds here? Yeah, got a couple. That's the little joke put in there. I was 15 years as a police officer for the Austin Police Department in Austin, Texas. 8 of those years I spent as a hostage negotiator. We actually call it Critical Incident Negotiations Team. So you may have seen CINT or something to that effect. I spent 4 years as a robbery detective. And just to make sure you know what a robbery is, some people say my car got robbed. You probably got broken into or stolen from. As we say in the business, the hamburglar sneaks into your house and takes your hamburgers when no one's looking. The ham robber puts a gun in your face and says, give me those cheeseburgers, right? So the robberies are violent crimes. We also work with other violent crimes, including assaults and homicides, but I was a robbery detective specifically. I'm currently a cyber operator for Zatir. I do all kinds of things as a cyber operator. Just Google it. Computer stuff. And part of the stuff I do there is social engineering, whether that be in person or through emails or you name it. I'm also a cyber operator with the Air Force, the Air Guard here in Maryland. Go Guard. And y'all are interested in the Guard, talk to me afterwards. Guard is a wonderful thing here in Maryland. I'm a former Marine. I was infantry in the Marine Corps, fought in Iraq back in 04-05, and I am older now and wiser, and my back hurts. So that's why I go Guard. I started off, I like to mention that I was Dell tech support. I think I talked to somebody here earlier about that. I really cut my teeth at Dell back in the 90s. So you may have called Dell tech support if you were a Premier Access or if you had a company you worked for, and you may have heard, let's see if this thing's working. Test? No, it's not. You may have heard, thank you for calling Dell tech support. This is Tom speaking. May I have your service tag number, please? That was me. If you ever got that, that was, you have to really, has anyone ever done any kind of phone support? It's challenging, right? Are all of the people who call you glad to talk to you?
Oh, no.
Basically never. They never call you to be like, hey, how you doing? It doesn't happen. So you have to try to calm them down. You have to try to get past whatever their issue is, solve the problem, But solving the problem is usually easier than actually getting past their issue. Their issue is them, right? They're angry, they're mad, things are broken. Why is it broken? How do I get past this? And anyone who's ever done phone support or done this kind of thing, maybe you worked at a grocery store and someone broke something, whatever. You've been in a situation, you have socially engineered somebody. You have done that. You've already been there. Maybe you have kids and you've done this on a good day, not the bad days, where you were able to calm down, get that person to listen to what you're doing and actually solve the problem, solve the issue. That's what social engineering is on the good side. On the bad side, it's getting things from you that you don't necessarily want to give out. And I'm generally a nerd. So what we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about what is social engineering. When you leave here, you should already know that. We're going to talk about red flags. Should be pretty obvious here in a minute. The soft and hard techniques, engineering and dissecting the truth, that is being offense or defense. That's what I call this. You're either engineering your own version of truth, your own version of reality that you're presenting to somebody, or you're dissecting it. You're taking apart and trying to figure out what really is true. And I'm going to give some examples. So what is social engineering? Has anyone here, I assume some of you probably heard of social engineering before, right? There's a couple different definitions out there. The one I like the best is the second one. It's intentionally getting people to do things with manipulation. So I had someone ask me in one of my previous talks, is my newborn socially engineering me to get fed? Kind of, but not really, because the child isn't, the newborn, if any of y'all had children, when they cry, they're wet, they're hungry, they're tired, right? That's the three things. They don't do it intentionally, right? It's instinctive. Now, when they're like 3 or 4, yeah, they're going to cry, crocodile tears. That is 100% social engineering. I have a 5-year-old daughter, and I have older kids as well. It's always social engineering. They're just not very good at it. And I don't try to correct them and get them better because I don't want them to turn it against me. But if they do get good, I'm just going to be well done. I had someone else in another talk I did as well ask me, hey, I chatted with people before I started, and they were asking me, are you social engineering us? And not really, but we kind of all do it all the time. So when you go to an interview and you're talking to the interviewer looking for a job, are you social engineering them? Yeah, kind of. You're presenting your version of events. You're engineering your truth to them. Hey, here's my resume. And resumes don't show everything you did every day. You always pick the best version of the events, right? At the best thing you ever did, right? So if you were a supervisor for that 1 week, in whatever you worked at, and you were in charge of 100 people, you're going to put that down in your resume. You may not have done that your whole career, but you put down the best version of events. You are presenting the best version of events because you are trying to get the interviewer to give you a job. If you've ever been on a date, has anyone ever been on a date before? Yeah. Do you show the worst version of yourself?
Usually, yeah.
You're very good and honest then.
I'm not just sure if you're good at it or not.
Yeah, right? It's exactly like I think we've all seen, if you all go to social media or Reddit or whatever, you've probably seen like terrible dates gone wrong, and you're looking at this like, how could anyone act like this? Is this the best version of that person? And they're acting terribly, and then like, yeah, you should run away. But when you go on a date, you show the best version of yourself if you plan on continuing the date or having another date. It doesn't mean you're lying. You could be lying, but hopefully you're not lying. So social engineering doesn't mean you're being dishonest, but it could be, right? You could straight up just be lying about everything, and that's unethical. Why does any of this matter? Has anyone here ever had a computer of theirs hacked into, or had an email account stolen, or had a friend of theirs? I think we all have, right? It's pretty much happened to everybody. The weakest link in technology and computers and everything else isn't your password, although your password might be really weak. It's you. It's people. Just look in the news, the past 2 weeks, Microsoft, everybody else getting hacked. It happens constantly. And it's almost always because of social engineering. One of the biggest ways of getting people's stuff right now, like you're thinking, well, I'm good because I have a password, but then they have to send me a one-time code to my phone too. All I have to do is figure out what phone number you have. I look it up in Google, see who your service provider is, AT&T, whoever. I call them up and pretend to be you. Or better yet, there's a video, and I'm not going to show it right now. I'll link it in the notes at the end. One of the best social engineers out there. It's not me. I forget her name off the top of my head. I had it written down. I think it's Jennifer. Anyway, she demonstrates to a guy on the video. He's from a news station. She looks up his phone number. She calls AT&T. He is single, and she has the sound of a crying baby. And she calls them up and says, hey, we just moved to town. My husband put me in charge of getting this transferred over, and there's a baby just crying in the background. You worked support before, right? Do you like hearing a woman exasperated who's being very polite and friendly, and there's a baby crying in the background? So of course, this person just wants to get this off the phone. She's not being mean, and she gets the PIN code changed really quickly, and then she swaps the SIM, and now she controls his phone, like right in front of him. He's sitting right there. He never got a notification. His phone just stops working. And now she gets a one-time PIN. It's taken. It's easy. By the way, if you have a cell phone, which most of us do, make sure you call your provider and try to get a password put on there and tell them not to change it over the phone without the password or the PIN code. Just a safety thing. So why does this matter? Understanding the intentions of others, as I put there, and understanding what someone might be trying to do is important to us to protect ourselves, to protect our privacy, to protect our money, our accounts. And it can also help you maybe, I don't know, get a job or something. Maybe it'll help you when you're introducing yourself to somebody to talk to them better. I break things down very dummy style in here. I was a Marine, which means I like things simple. Doesn't get much more simple than that. There's lots of gray area in between stuff, but we're just going to break stuff down into soft and into hard. So what is soft? It's initially disarming. It's, hey, how you doing? I'm Tom. How's it going? You're just, soft isn't necessarily, and it's one of the things I want to clarify. When I say something is a soft technique or a soft approach, it isn't how I'm acting, if I'm the social engineer, it's how you feel. If you feel calm, at ease, you have no idea what's going on, that is a soft approach. I could be pretending to have a baby crying on the phone, but you just think it's a normal interaction. That's a soft, normal, non-hostile dialogue. Hard, of course, is the opposite. When it can be confrontational, it could be loud, but it could also be, I could be very calm. I'm sure you've seen movies or been in situations, maybe your boss or a loved one or somebody else, they're talking very calmly. Use this. They're talking you gotta turn it on. They're talking very calmly, but you know you're in trouble and you know you're screwed. It's how you feel inside. If your heart is racing, it's going 100 miles an hour, that's a heart technique. Has anyone watched any of the videos on YouTube where they do the detectives talking to people? And very rarely does a detective ever raise their voice. But if you watch the whole video, especially there's some really good ones out there where they show you why it's going this direction and why things are happening, you can feel the pressure in that room. And if you're just watching it, it looks very calm, but you can just feel the tension ratcheting up and ratcheting up. When you catch somebody in a lie, the longest interrogation I ever had was 8 hours long. And that was because the guy got scared to go to jail and just wanted to talk to me. But generally an interrogation goes a couple of hours. And you just let the person talk and let them talk and let them talk. And if they're guilty, and you should already know it before they ever walk in, you already have the evidence. The talking part is just icing on the cake. And they tell you what happened, you're just nodding your head, like in these videos. And then you pull up the video, or you pull up the witness or whatever. Generally it's video, or you have some other kind of evidence, and you just throw that out there. It's just very nonchalant. Well, that's weird. What is this? and then they know they've been caught. That's a hard technique, even if you're not screaming. It could also be someone comes into the building with a gun and says, "Get on the ground, give me your money." That would be a hard technique too, right? That's something that would get you amped up. So it's not necessarily scary, but it's something that emotionally makes you feel a lot of pressure. And a combination of the two, the roller coaster ride, which if you haven't seen the videos of detectives in interrogation rooms, that's usually what that is. They start things off very soft and easy. How you doing? What's your name? And then slowly build the pressure up and bring it back down. I haven't seen any hostage negotiation videos online, but negotiators, CINTs, they're trained to specifically try to tire people out. My longest negotiation, I was only in on it for like 5 hours, my portion of it, but it went on for almost 30-something hours straight. This guy was inside of his house. He was shooting outside of his windows and he had some issues he needed help with, and they didn't want to hurt him. They just wanted him to come out, right? He needed to go to the hospital, mental hospital, but he didn't want to come out and he had guns. So what you try to do is tire that person out. So you can go soft and slow and just be like, "So tell me about your day. How was things today? Oh, that's crazy. That's great." But you have to know a lot about them. You have to know a lot about a lot of things. Ask them what their favorite sports team is, what their favorite movie is, what their favorite book. You just want to keep them talking and talking. And then every now and then, you just start throwing things in intentionally to mess with them, to get their emotions amped up, because you're trying to get them to spike their adrenaline and back down. Spike it, back down. Spike it, back down. It's a roller coaster. You're physically tiring them out through a normal conversation. And that's my favorite way, when you have time, social engineer somebody. So how I do things, I kind of already gave you the secret there, I told you. A couple things here that are really important. Take a sip of water. You can either meet someone's expectations by showing them what they expect to see, or you can subvert those expectations. I'm sure you can all think of an example right now. I'm just trying to think of something off the top of my head. I do that every time I give a talk. I think of something new off the top of my head. If you go on a date, someone sets you up on a blind date, and they're like, "Oh man, this person is the best in the world. They're beautiful. They're handsome. You're going to love this. This is great." And you show up, you're expecting something pretty good. And you show up and it's not that. Oh, okay. Might have subverted your expectations. Or maybe you're getting a rental car, right? And you get the car and it's, hey, you rented a small car and you got an amazing car they gave you. They subverted your expectations, or maybe they just met it. Generally speaking, if you're on the offense, if you're engineering the truth, you want to meet the expectations of the other person, because you want to fly under the radar. You want them to not even realize what you're doing. You don't want them to know anything at all about what's going on. If you're subverting their expectations or changing things up, it's usually intentional, and it's because you are trying to throw them off or to distract them. So if you're going to an interview, I do not recommend you show up with a top hat and a bow tie that's this big, looking like a clown, to subvert their expectations. It might work. Maybe if you come in with a guitar like Axl Rose, they might be like, "You're cool, I'm going to give you a job," but probably not. You probably want to show up looking professional, because you're wanting to meet their expectations. People respond best when they're dealing with someone who is caring, honest, and competent. If you're talking to a police officer who acts like they care about your problem, who acts like they're honest, and they seem like they know what they're talking about, that's the person you want to talk to. I did experiments once when I was a rookie cop. I think it was like I've been in for 3 years. It's a rookie, still pretty much a rookie. And where I was from, we didn't wear hats, like our dress caps, like they do in the Northeast up here. A lot of places like Boston, they all wear the hats. We don't do that in Texas because it's just too hot. You wear a baseball cap or something. I wore my long sleeve shirt that had my tie on and all my ribbons, which was like 1 at the time because I was new. And I wore my bus driver hat, as we called it. And I did the whole day in my shiny gear just to see what would happen. And I showed up on scene, and I probably looked like I was 12 years old, and there's guys next to me with gray hair, and people came and talked to me because they expected that must be the guy in charge. I met the expectation of what they thought they wanted to talk to. If you've ever worked a job where someone said, "Can I please speak to the manager?" You might have been the manager, but you sure didn't look like it if they said that to you. We've probably all been there. And how many of you have ever had a situation like that where you got Chuck or Jill or somebody else who looks like they should be in charge, but they're not? We did that all the time, worked at Dell. Like, yeah, let me get you this person. They talk and they sound like they're in charge, and the person just wants to vent because you're meeting the expectations of that person. And if they sound like they're caring, they sound like they're honest, and they're competent, they're playing the part, it works. So if someone's doing this to you, you're probably not even going to realize it. They're going to say hey, I'm here to talk to you about whatever. And it just seems just legit. I'm here to talk to you about family planning or life insurance or whatever. Not saying not to trust life insurance people. Please don't get that impression. If you're engineering the truth, if you're on the offense, if you will, not necessarily offense, but if you're engineering the truth, let the other person talk. One of the best ways to make friends and influence people is to just let people talk. It helps if you are genuinely interested in what they're talking about, and it helps if you know a little bit about what they're talking about so you can have good conversation. Has anyone read the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People? I only recently read it this year. It's kind of old, and you could probably boil it down to like 2 pages worth of actual information, but to give you lots of examples, and it's really good. It's really old, and it's right. And it talks to you about a lot of the same concepts that you'll see me talking about and others. And that's how to get people to come around to your way of thinking, or at least agree or not get angry with each other. Don't get flustered by unexpected things. If you are engineering your truth, if you are the one who's presenting yourself in a positive light or in a certain light, and someone throws something at you that's kind of weird, crazy, just roll with it. Just act like it's not even happening. If you have kids, you know exactly what I'm talking about. They don't want to go to bed. Who has kids? You don't have to raise your hand, but just think about it. You have kids, man, it sure does seem like they get hungry and thirsty and have to go to the bathroom right before bedtime. It's crazy. Oh, I didn't eat it all, Dad. Really? Because I just fed you and you said, oh, I'm still hungry. You just don't want to go to sleep. Don't get flustered by that. You can either lose your mind and just like, go to bed, or you can just be like, okay, let's do this. Just don't get flustered. Just keep going. That's the best way to handle these kind of things. Be smooth, like butter. Talk briefly about expectations. That's like the longest sentence I have in this entire slide. I don't like long sentences, but someone over there is reading this right now. People have expectations based on authentic interactions from the past. So when I showed up as a cop with the hat on and a long sleeve shirt and a tie, people have seen that in the movies. They don't do that in Texas, but they saw it in the movies. And that must be the sergeant. No, I was just a rookie playing a joke. If they've had that interaction before with people, their expectations based on what they already know, right? If you are working at a factory making widgets and someone comes in there and you know everyone who works there, or most of the people who work there, and maybe you're supposed to wear a hard hat and have a badge, and someone walks in and they're not wearing a hard hat, don't have a badge, you're probably thinking, who is this person? My expectation from what I know at this job is if you work here, you have a hard hat and a badge. If you're in a situation where you don't know what's going on, that's when you pull from what you've seen on TV and the media, etc., from your friends. Once again, you can meet the expectations or subvert them, or both. When I was a cop, specifically only as a detective, I looked like that. Why did I have a giant mustache? People have an expectation of detectives around the world that the good detective has a mustache and probably a cup of coffee or something else. I always had a mug with me. It sometimes had coffee in it, usually not. I didn't like caffeine too late, 'cause you can't go to bed. You have to pee in the middle of the night. That's no fun. But a giant mustache, guess who they come and talk to? They come and talk to me. I had another guy with me. He had a good mustache and a cowboy hat and a 6-shooter. Perfect team together. We were great. So you have to act a certain way. You have to present yourself as a detective, caring, honest, competent, and you have to present yourself, the way you dress, the way you look, the way you act, has to be something the person wants to see, what they expect to see, or they're not going to take you serious. Now that you look at that, you're like, how can you take someone serious with that kind of mustache? But, you know what I mean? This is a chart I put together because some people like charts. Don't pay too much attention to it. But I put on there, you might notice, it's just kind of like, okay, well, how do things go when certain things are happening? If you're getting interrogated, there might be a team of people playing or an individual. If you don't know how interviews go or interrogations, we don't call them interrogations. That sounds negative. It's just an interview. You're free to stop talking at any time. Just plead just say like a lawyer. It's surprising how many people don't do that. It's usually a team of people. There's usually one detective, maybe 2 detectives in the room with that person, but there's a whole group of people watching the videos, feeding them information on their cell phone, or when you see these videos, the detective leaves the room, they're going to get some more information to come back in. You have a whole team working with you. If anyone has ever had a phone call from a scammer and actually entertained that scammer or been scammed by them before, it's not just that one person. It is initially. They have a whole team with them. And as soon as they get you talking on the phone, the whole team hops in. There's usually at least 2 or 3 people, and they're feeding information, looking you up, getting all this information. This is how we operate as negotiators. If you ever see a negotiation, it's not quite like the movies where there's one guy talking to someone off a bridge, although I have actually done that because my team wasn't there. It's usually a whole team inside of a room talking to one person in their earpiece, or you're talking on the phone, and there's a group of people who are looking information up, who are passing ideas, who are saying, this is what you should say next. It's not just one person. If you are being conned or scammed by someone who is socially engineering you on the phone, or by email, there's a really good chance you're not going to outwit that one person because you're not fighting against one person. You're against a whole team. And you could be the smartest person in the world, but when there's a whole team against you, it's really hard. I'll talk about what to do on that later. A job interview. It's usually kind of soft to you if it's a good interview, but for most of us, it can get a little hard or combination. You're usually against a whole team of people, right? It's that whole team of people asking questions. I'm a developer by trade. I program. And if anyone's ever done a coding interview, anyone here ever done a coding interview? Are they fun? What's the big O notation of this? And by the way, here's whatever. Did you get to hold the big book on the job? Yeah, they like to throw out these crazy things, and you're like, hey, there's 20 minutes, let's make this happen. And you're like, man, I hope I practice this. They're tough, right? It's a lot of stress. It's a team against you, and they know the answer because they've done this interview 10 times that day. Recruiting scam. If anyone here has LinkedIn, you might have gotten some recruiting scam emails. You may not even know it. It happens. You'll notice that salespeople, I'm going to put this down as a new salesperson because I offended a used car salesman specifically because I said used car salesman last time. I'm not trying to offend anybody. A new salesperson who doesn't know how to be a salesperson, a good one, and robbery are both hard. We probably all had an experience with someone who's a brand new salesperson and they're not good at what they're doing, but they've seen the movies. And in the movies, you got to press them hard, right? Get them to do this. Was that Glengarry Glen Ross, right? You got to just get in there and strike it iron while it's hot. And there's probably some good salespeople who are like that. But if you know the good salespeople in your life, they're not like that at all, right? They're usually kind of relaxed because they're good at what they do. So a new salesperson and a robbery. Most robberies are pretty scary and violent. Lots of other things in there we've talked about already. Interactions. So here's an example of interaction. Has anyone here seen the movie Ready Player One? The book is better, but this is a perfect example of this. There's a scene in this movie, if you haven't seen it, go look it up. Look it up on YouTube. It's when Wade, our hero protagonist, is talking against the antagonist, Sorrento, the bad guy, who is like just pure evil. And it's the first time they're talking. And Sorrento is trying to tell him, hey, I'm just like you. I'm a nerd, I like playing games. But the reality is, as we know as a viewer, is he just wants to steal the keys and win this prize. So he's trying to convince him, I'm just like you. I play games just like you. I drink the same stuff you drink. I like to watch the same movies you watch. And if you've seen the movie, you know he's got a whole team talking in his ear, doesn't he? Just like I talked about. He's got a team of people, and they're feeding him stuff. And he's doing a decent job of talking. But he's not authentic. Because of his interactions in the past with our character, and because of the things he's done in the past with the world at large, our hero knows this guy doesn't feel authentic. He acts like he's caring. He acts like he's surely competent. He knows what he's doing. But he's not caring. And he doesn't feel authentic. It doesn't feel real. And that's what helps our hero in the story realize he's being socially engineered. They don't call it that, but that's what's going on. It's a really good example of social engineering. Pizza delivery. That seems weird on there, but imagine if you didn't order a pizza and a pizza delivery person shows up at your door. That's kind of weird. It's probably nothing. I come from the robbery world where people get their houses broken into, not while they're there, not because they have something in their value other than money and drugs. In Texas, that's all illegal, and people would come, and it was very common for people to show up as a pizza delivery driver or UPS. Who turns away a free pizza? A cop? A fake cop? We spoke earlier about how I dressed as a cop that one day. A fake cop. Has anyone here ever interacted with someone who pretended to be a police officer who wasn't? It's really frightening. I interacted with somebody on duty as a cop who pretended to be a police officer. And it was a really bold move. Didn't work because they're obviously not a cop. And the stuff they said, they had some issues. But sometimes people do that. I saw on the news here recently. It's not always someone who has mental issues. Sometimes they're trying to take advantage of you. How to identify when you're the mark. We're talking about red flags. If you get a dream job offer, you get an email or something from LinkedIn where someone's like, hey, I have the perfect offer for you. If you've ever looked in your spam folder on your email, I guarantee you have some kind of dream offer or some kind of something from the international something of something, and they want to hire you to come work somewhere. Well, it's all a lie. It's all a scam, right? They're trying to get you through multiple steps that you can't see yet because they're playing chess and you're still playing checkers. They're going to get some information from you to take your money, to take something from you. And you see no possible way it could possibly happen from the email you're looking at right now. Or from this, how could a job offer to me possibly scam me out of anything? Well, click the link. Find out. Don't click the link. Don't do that. There's usually flattery going on. Hey, we found your profile on LinkedIn. Hey, your neighbor said that you were the best person in the block. I should come talk to you. They probably never talked to your neighbor. Has anyone ever come to your house, by the way, to sell whatever, solar power, whatever, it doesn't matter, and they ask your name? Did you know they're going to tell your neighbor they talked to you and you said you loved it? Oh, I just talked to Cindy and she said this is great. So I always give a fake name. And then my neighbors know if they hear that fake name, I told this person to get lost because they don't have my real name. Just a fun little thing to play with your neighbors. If you like your neighbors, if you don't, let them think it was you who sent them over. Urgency of interaction. We talked earlier about the new salesperson. You got to buy now. The sale ends today. You have to get this today. You've got to get it now. There's always this urgency of interaction, which, by the way, if you're ever buying anything online, not from Amazon, but from any other store, because Amazon doesn't do this, put in your email to get the 5% off, put the item in your cart, and then just walk away. And wait a few hours, wait a day. Most websites will send you an email, hey, you left this in your cart, we'll give you 20% off if you buy it today. Okay. Because you're going to do it anyway. It's just a nice way to save some money. Because they know the urgency they think that you forgot about it. But if I urgently tell you to get it now, then maybe they'll actually buy it. Joke's on them, you were going to do it anyway. And if you feel yourself getting uncomfortable, if you're talking in an interaction like a fake cop or with anyone, let's say you're on a date or whatever, it doesn't matter, and you're talking to somebody and it feels wrong, something just doesn't feel right, you're actually noticing things that are wrong, you just might not be able to articulate it. One of the biggest things they teach police officers when they're going through things, and investigators that aren't police officers, is to learn to articulate your feelings. Feel how you feel. Okay, well, this person's wearing a thick jacket and gloves and a face mask with a hood on, and it's 97 degrees outside, and they're walking towards a bank. Something feels wrong about this. That's an obvious example, right? And then once COVID hit, it kind of gave people a little excuse to do some other stuff too, but you may not know why something feels wrong. But if you stop and think about it and dissect it later and just kind of think it over, why did this interaction feel off? What was wrong about this? Oh, the person was doing this and then that happened. There was a famous movie not too long ago where there was a character in the movie pretending to be German. It took place in World War II. And he used the wrong number of fingers to order some beer. I did it wrong. Whatever. He did it wrong. And it's apparently, yes, Inglourious Basterds, thank you. He talks the talk, his accent, everything was perfect, but this one little thing. And everyone there immediately caught it, right? In the reality, if that actually were to happen, someone there might feel something's wrong with this guy. Which it kind of seemed like that in the movie. They couldn't quite pinpoint what was wrong with this guy. Something was wrong with him, even though he was the good guy. But as soon as he did the wrong number of fingers or the way he did it, they got it. Like, yep, he's a liar. He's faking it. When you're going through interactions, whether you're the one who's engineering your own truth or you're dissecting the truth of somebody else, try to think about when something feels off later that day. If you can do it in a minute, do it. Why does this feel wrong? Why does this feel off? If you get an email offering you a job in some other country or something, why does that feel wrong? Well, you're probably not going to go necessarily, but something might feel wrong. I got an email the other day from the actual host that hosts some of my websites, but it wasn't from them. And I immediately saw the email was wrong. But it was saying my stuff was about to expire. Well, my stuff was about to expire, but none of my real information's on there, and no one ever emailed me directly, and I use a different email account for this, so lots of little things felt wrong. But initially seeing it on my phone, everything's together. So I first saw that email, and it looked real until you click on it. Luckily, I don't click through anything, but start identifying things. What are some red flags? I mentioned red flags earlier. Red flags can be things such as, this feels wrong. This person's dressed incorrectly for today. There's different things that are going on wrong here. I recently did a post on my website where I was talking about identifying flags. And I gave lots of examples of this. And it's not in this talk right here, but I just kind of want to touch on it. If you're talking to somebody and things seem, if they're lying, you straight up say, like, their hand is in a cookie jar, and they say, my hand's not in the cookie jar, boss. It's not there. Like, well, I see your hand in the cookie jar. Well, that's lying. That's an obvious red flag, right? Something's wrong. If what they're saying doesn't conform to reality that you saw before they arrived, or maybe there's the old, what's that on your shirt? So maybe they're like, oh yeah, I was just over here hanging out, sitting down, and there's like mud all over your shirt. It looks like you've been crawling around in the dirt. Oh no, I was just sitting down. Okay, well that doesn't match up. There's a red flag. The things I physically see don't match up with what they're telling me. Also, there's a technique I call the Cotton Eye Joe from an old song. Where did you come from? Where did you go? And then in Texas, there's a refrain where we all yell BS. Or we don't say BS, we actually say the word. We all dance and stuff. And that's a basic technique of identifying when someone is lying to you. Let's say, as a cop, it's a good example here, but where are you coming from? If I ask anyone in this room where you came from, you know where you came from because you just came from there. If you're lying about where you're coming from, you have to make something up. And it's hard to make stuff up on the spot. If I ask you where you're going, so like, let's say you got stopped on the way here. You could tell somebody where you're coming from and where you're going and what you're going to do when you get there. When are you coming back? There's lots of other questions, but those are the two basic ones. If people cannot answer those questions consistently, when you ask these questions, where are you coming from? Where are you going? What are you going to do when you get there? Who are you going with? When are you coming back? They're probably lying to you. You don't always know why they're lying to you, or it doesn't always matter, but that should raise some red flags if they can't answer basic questions. If someone's saying they have a job for you, oh, okay, what company are you coming from? Oh, I'm with so-and-so. Okay, they probably have something sorted out. How long have you been there? They're just going to cut contact with you. The whole point of most of those email scams, you're looking for people who will fall for easy, basic stuff. If you ask a couple questions, it'll go away. And I'm sorry I'm not walking around as much here. My mic is stuck here. What do you do? If you're in a situation where you feel like something is not right, let's say you're working at your company and someone calls you up and is asking for information about a former employee. I think most companies these days don't give any information out. The best they'll do is refer you to HR. But it looks like most people here, at least my age or older, not everybody, but most, and there was a day where people would call for references. They'd actually call up your former place of employment and ask questions, and people would actually talk. That's clearly a bad idea when you think about it a little bit logically. I mean, it was good when you're like, yeah, that person was terrible, you should never hire them. Or maybe you want to get rid of them and you're like, they're great. Yeah, you should get them. But people will still do that to try to get information about somebody. Like, maybe I looked up on LinkedIn and know this person used to work at ABC. I'm going to call ABC and see if I can get some information about them so I can hack into their life or get into their life. Unfortunately, I've seen a lot of situations where there's a lot of former spouses or boyfriend, girlfriends that are stalking somebody, and they do this all the time. They follow you from place to place. They call up your old businesses. They call up your current businesses, try to get information about you. If you're getting a phone call about an employee that's there, who's talking to you? Who's this person on the phone? You don't know who they are. Hey, why don't you come down to the office and talk to HR? We'll be glad to help you out. Don't be mean to them, but just pass them off, because maybe it is someone legitimate, right? Just try to pause the interaction. Try to stop it if you can, or pause it, or slow things down as best you can. Verify credentials. I have one of the calls I took as a rookie cop. There was a guy who went to buy a car at a fancy car lot. It was like they had custom cars, and I forget the car he had. I think it was a really old Corvette, and he wanted to buy it with a personal check, and it was $50-something thousand. I don't remember the amount. It was greater than $50,000 because it made it a first-degree felony. It's a big deal. And the guy at the car lot was like, "Man, we don't take personal checks. That's kind of odd. That's a red flag." But he didn't listen to it because he wanted to make the sale. And the con artist knew that. And he says, "Tell you what, why don't you talk to my bank? Here, talk to my bank. It's right there." And the guy took the guy's cell phone. The salesman took the cell phone from the con artist and talked to his bank, which was his buddy in the parking lot. "Oh, how can I help you?" "Oh, so-and-so, account number. Give me a minute to verify." Clickety-clack sounds. "Yeah, he's got X number of dollars in there. He's good for it. Do you want to wait for us to get you a certified check?" "Oh, no, this is good." "Okay, why don't you come down today and cash that? We'll take care of it for you." So the guy bought a car with a personal check. It was like an obvious scam. But it's not obvious when you're in that moment, because he had that pressure. Like, "Hey, I want to buy this today because I'm going out of town." He showed him some real credentials. "Hey, here's a phone." But it's always little red flags that this person, when he's telling the story to me, when I was a cop, he's telling the story to me and being like, "Man, this sounds really stupid." I'm like, "Yeah, it does sound really stupid." I didn't say it like that, though. I was just like, "Well, all right." So verify credentials, but never trust the credentials they give you from themselves. If I show you my ID, don't just take it at its face value. If I say I work for something company, call the company up. If it's something that's important for like that, right? If someone's showing up at your company, this is something penetration testers do all the time. They're hired by a company, the company you work for usually, to come in, to emulate a threat from the threat actor who might be trying to get into your company. Someone shows up and they don't have a badge. When was the last time you were at your company, and let's say you have to have a badge on, and you saw someone you didn't know who didn't have a badge? When did you stop them and say, "Hey, do you have a badge?" Have you ever done that? Maybe you should. I did it today. And there was a guy, I was pretty sure worked there, but I did it anyway. And I'm just a third-party contractor at that building. But that's how it is, right? Because what if he got fired last week and I didn't know it? I was out on vacation. And what if he's back in to steal something? He wasn't. His lanyard broke. But the point still stands. If someone's trying to get something from your company, they're just going to walk in and act like they belong there. Verify credentials. Don't rely on the information provided by them. Check it out yourself. Terminate, pause, or stall the interaction. Time is your friend. We talked about if someone's on the phone with you, hey, can I have you talk to HR? Pause it. Stop the interaction. Do what you have to do. If you have to lock the door, pause the interaction. Hey, can I get right back to you? I just have to take this call real quick. Whatever you have to do, pause it, stop, talk to somebody else, think about it. Get your own team working with you. Just run it by somebody. Pause the interaction. Be aware of how you feel during that interaction. Feel how you feel. Do I feel like something is wrong? If something feels wrong, something's probably wrong. You just don't know how to articulate it yet. Do you feel like you're excited, nervous, scared? And I already said that because I'm not reading my slides all the way. What questions do people here have? I'll take questions from, well, I guess you can do questions for the chat. Somebody's got to have some question. Yes, sir.
Is social engineering the same thing as ethical hacking?
It can be, yes. So ethical hacking, social engineering is part of that. When it's done ethically, of course, that's the key word, right? So if I'm being hired by you or your company, or by someone who you contracts through, and they're wanting to test the security, this happens at most companies. They do this all the time. They want to be caught. If someone is social engineering because they're ethically hacking your company, they're trying to get inside, they want to get caught. They get excited when someone stops them and asks them, are you supposed to be here? No, actually I'm not. Okay. And it's, if you listen to the stories, and there's so many great ones on podcasts like Darknet Diaries and just YouTube and other things. If you haven't checked out Darknet Diaries, wonderful podcast. Look at the social engineering ones. These folks do the craziest stuff. Like, they go out of their way, like, okay, to get inside this building, I have to hide inside of a car, tailgate in behind this other person and make a fake beep sound so the guard won't catch me. And the first day they're doing all this secret stuff to get inside of a door. And then no one ever tries to stop them. And so they come back again the next day. The company who's hired them says, I want to see a reaction. I want to see someone stop you. Do what it takes to get someone to stop you. And so then they just like walk around a gate, wave with no badge, and no one stops them. And then they're going in this one where they're drilling through a door. They have a hard hat on. He's just drilling through a door in the middle of the day. No one's asking him what's going on. And it wasn't until the fourth or fifth day, they're driving go-karts around in the parking lot of a very highly secured area where someone says, are you supposed to be here? He says, actually, I'm not. If a threat actor or someone who's trying to break into your company does these things, they're not going to do that, right? They're going to try to be all secret about it. But if you see someone without a badge, it's not against the rule. Just ask them. You signed that employee training. That's the company you work for right now. Okay, Luigi looks like asking a question. How do you know when you are being socially engineered on LinkedIn? After getting your CV, they have a lot of information. That's exactly right. That's it. You got it, Luigi. So it's tough. One of the biggest things out there that seems like a scam that's not really a scam is third-party, I'm trying to think of the right way of saying it. It's a third-party recruiter. They're not hired by anybody. They're trying to be a recruiter and trying to get your information so they can shotgun it out, and hopefully you'll get a job somewhere and they can get a cut from it. But that company never hired them. It's very common. I work in the cleared space. So if anybody asks for my resume or sends me a LinkedIn thing and they're not a US citizen, and I can see they're living outside the country or something, I immediately don't talk to them because I just don't do that. But that might not be the case for everybody, right? It's a lot harder, especially if you're international business or international whatever, it's a lot harder for you in that situation. So click on them back, Luigi. Click on their little link there and see where they work, although it could all be fake. I have some fake LinkedIn accounts online that are still active, and it's really hard to keep fake LinkedIn accounts. I'm not bragging. I'm just not going to tell you where they are. It took me a long time to get those. It's easy. It's actually kind of hard on LinkedIn, but you can create a fake LinkedIn account, start adding friends, making posts, have a whole network with a fake picture, fake jobs that don't exist. And pretty soon you have a network of thousands of people and you look really real. And it's very easy for me to send something to you and get information from you if you're not paying attention, but it looks real. So what I would do, Luigi, in your case, sorry, to finish answering the question, try to find out about the company first. You'll know it's a real recruiter if you ask how much they're paying and they immediately stop talking to you. Then it's probably a real recruiter. So ask about the job. Anyone who's been looking for a job would say, yeah, how much do y'all pay? They just go silent. So probably not enough. Okay. Try to find out about that company. Go to their website directly. If you've never heard of it, doesn't mean they don't exist, but you have to do more digging. When I first got my job at Zatir, I'd never heard of the company. Y'all probably never heard of the company. And I initially thought it was a scam. And then I did some digging, and then you find them on, especially if it's a contractor for the government, you can see what contracts people have won. So you can actually see they're a real company and verify information. But you should be able to find some information, Luigi, to find out. Someone else had a question back here?
Yeah, I just got scammed last week. On Facebook, I clicked on an ad, company that I buy for sneakers, had a sale going on, discontinued merchandise, whatever. And of course it was super great price. So I populated this, so I don't know if there was a red flag, but I'm like, this is real, this is like too good to be true. And anyway, I clicked on it and it populated with my credit card. And I'm like, sure, okay, that makes it easy. It said, there's a problem with your credit card, it may have expired, whatever. So now it wants another credit card from me. And as soon as I clicked on the first one, I got a text saying, this particular charge has been turned down. So obviously somebody else had been scammed before, the bank knew it, wasn't letting these charges go through.
That's a great example. Thank you for sharing that. You mentioned urgency. It's a deal right now,
Yeah.
right? And the best ones I've seen, and I don't use Facebook for myself because I don't like it, but I use it to attack people. When I was a detective, I used it all the time. Oh, people post stupid things to Snapchat and Facebook. I'm sure TikTok now, it wasn't a thing when I was there, but people post the dumbest things like, oh, here's me actively robbing somebody. Here's the money. And it's tied to my real phone number and my real email address and my real name.
Or storming the Capitol with all that stuff.
Exactly. So the best ones on Facebook or others that I've seen aren't too good to be true. They're just really good deals that do come around sometimes,
Yeah.
right? They seem real because they have an air of authenticity to them. They seem legit. And when I did a social engineering campaign, a targeted email campaign for some customers we had, and they wanted me to target some people. It's one of these penetration testing things, right? I can't name the company, but they want to see, well, can we get people inside our company to click on something? And the stuff that everybody wants to click on is, we're repaving the parking lot and you're going to get a custom spot, like your own spot. People love that. It's just dumb, right? Even if they work from home, they still want to, whatever. It's the dumbest thing. And then, of course, my favorite is we're upgrading your laptop. You're going to get a brand new laptop. Which of these 3 laptops do you want? There's a MacBook, there's a Dell, and something else, right? And something that's terrible. And then, like, what software do you need? What do you use right now? What are the serial numbers for the software you have right now? What are the keys? I sent all this information and it was just a list, and they just kept coming back with more and more. And pretty soon I know everything that's on their laptop, all of their serial keys. And this was for a company that I'm doing this for, right? They're not doing anything wrong, or they shouldn't have clicked on it. They should have verified. Like, did anything go out saying they're getting new laptops? No, it's just an email. So it seems mundane. It seems like if you work at a company where they issue you a laptop, I guarantee you, if you saw an email that looked official, especially as a big company, you're probably thinking, yeah, I'm due for a new laptop. Yeah, that makes sense. I'm special. I get a new laptop. That's a good one. But yeah, it's hard. So you named a couple red flags. It seems good to be true.
I mean, they cloned the site. You can, scan down and see a different zillion different, shoes on sale.
There's some free open source software out there and better stuff that you pay for where you can immediately clone a site and clone an email and send out an email to somebody, have them click on it. That's what we use in these campaigns. The things to look for, the email looks wrong. Now, I know a lot of marketing emails are often really long characters or strings, but usually they'll say like @Nike.com or @Apple. It'll have something there, do not reply. But what I do, because I am this kind of a paranoid person, I just go to the website itself. I go to Google. We used to say back in the day, like never, always type in the thing yourself, right? I'm gonna mess it up. I just go to Google, type in whatever it is I'm going for, especially if it's a word that I don't type very often, because it's gonna show me the right result. I never click on a sponsored link. Even if it's for the right company, I scroll down past the sponsored link because you can always buy a sponsor and fake the company, and that goes away quickly, but they can be there for hours before Google catches it. I go down to the right one, click on it, and go there and see if they have a sale. That's how I do it. It's a couple of extra steps. It's annoying. I also use privacy. I'm not advertising for them, but I use privacy. It's privacy.com. So I have one-time credit cards for everything I do. I never use my debit card. I have a limit through my bank on my debit card where I cannot pull out more than, I think, $250 at a time. I can't use it. I used to have a debit card only and not a checking card, but then they stopped allowing me to do that. So anytime I buy something, I use privacy, and there's other companies out there as well. It's a one-time credit card that's only useful for that merchant and no one else. I can put a limit on it. I can say, this can go in perpetuity at this company for up to $100 a month or whatever. And so I have different credit cards for every single dealing I do. So if my credit card does get stolen, that one-time card, I don't care because it can only be used at this company. So if anyone else tries to use it, it's automatically declined. I've had my debit card stolen when I was in Aruba in the Marine Corps back in 2002. And I lost all $300 in my bank account. And that was devastating. That was all of my money. And then I started getting overdraft fees because my bills are missing. And I'm out of the country. I'm with the Marine Corps. I can't just fix this. There's no cell phone for me to use at the time. It can be devastating. And I learned a hard lesson. It was inexpensive, but it cost me all the money I had at the time. So try to use some kind of fake credit card or one-time credit card. Well, I think you were first back there.
So most credit cards, I think, well, all like Visa, Amex, and whatever, do that as a default. So when you're putting your credit card in online, your credit card is issuing a token, not your credit card number. So if you're passing it to the bank is then sending them a token, and that token is only good at that.
That's if you use you're right. So if you're using I think Visa was one of the first ones to do that, where you sign into Visa's website, your credit card company, but you can still go on places and type in your credit card number and they'll still just run it, right? I buy coffee all the time from a company in Texas. If you can't tell, I'm from Texas, from the accent, it just won't go away. And I use that. Let me get one of the ones from here.
Yeah, we have a couple, there's a bit of chatter here. 2 questions. What do you think of Tor and VPNs? And also, what common activities should not be done on public Wi-Fi's?
So Tor is a really good way to get around stuff. I don't really use it, but that's just because it's incredibly slow. But if you're doing something that you need privacy for, let's say that you're the classic example, and I think it was started by the Navy initially, the United States Navy. But the classic example is you're trying to report on something that's going on in a country that you're in, and you're in a hostile country that likes to lock down your internet. There's lots of places like that around the world. You can use the Tor network to get around it. It's not completely safe, so people who do bad things on Tor, they get caught because essentially, I'm not going to go into the whole thing, but essentially they can grab exit nodes, and if you control the exit nodes, you can control where things come from, and you can make things not anonymous anymore. But it's a really good way to get around stuff, but I wouldn't trust that with my life. I wouldn't trust very, very few things that I trust in my life on that question. Let me get another one from here, I guess. Let me come back in the room. Do you recommend using a VPN? It's kind of the same thing. Oh, thank you for asking VPN. I do not use a VPN at my house because all you're doing is taking the information. So essentially the advertising for the VPN is mostly clickbait stuff. They're trying to scare you into thinking that the company you use Comcast or whoever is stealing all your information, they already have your information. They have your credit card information. But yes, when you go online if you have Comcast, everything you do a search for, they can see through their DNS servers. Use a different DNS server. I don't use their DNS servers. If you don't know how to do it, find someone who can change your DNS settings. It's super simple, super easy. I do that, and then I just don't worry about it. If I am in another location and I need to get to work, I use a VPN to go to work. A VPN is a virtual private network. It's a way of making another network that you're not at virtually as if it's close to you now, like you're on the network. It's like your work network or your home network. You can VPN into your home network to access stuff you have there, or VPN into your work. That's what I use it for. I don't use it for like privacy, because really you're just shifting that from Comcast to this VPN person, and they're going to sell you information too. And now you're paying them to sell you information.
Me?
Yeah.
So all of us in here, we're very interested in the mechanisms and like how all this works. But most people, and I don't want to say most people that fall victim to these, because I don't want to fall into that trap. These get pretty complex. But how do you help someone when, like, dissuade them from falling into these? The example I'm thinking of is this was actually just last week. Someone was going around to people that were in the group chat for my college, asking them to post a link saying that they had a puppy, and that they needed to find someone to take it, or else because they were leaving the college, and that the link was malicious. The whole thing was a sham, but there were quite a few people. Most people were wary enough, but there were quite a few people who really wanted to post the link, and it was a battle to get them not to. How do you navigate that, especially when there is social implications, right? Like you don't seem like the good guy in that situation, trying to convince them to not house the puppy.
Inoculation. When it comes to anything like that, teaching someone, it's inoculating them with, and it's hard, you can't do it during the fact. It's really difficult because you look like a jerk, right?
Yeah.
You're the one like, I'm trying to help this person with their puppy. Whenever something like this happens, I'm sure we've all been in a situation like that, especially if you're ever in college. Someone came up and said something and you're like, that's a scam. And the person with you is like, this is a great idea. And you're trying to tell them like, are you crazy? No, this is obviously a scam. And they're like, you're just a whatever, fuddy-duddy. That's an old word for you. Inoculation. So after this happens, give an example that's over the top, obvious, fake, and just tell the story. Like, find a real example. Hey, this is what happened last year on campus. This person did this thing and it seems like a really good idea. It was a GoFundMe or whatever, right? And they wanted people to share it, and people are kind because most people are sharing and they're kind and they want to help, and they all fell victim to it. And so now their brain is primed with an example. You've inoculated them. So the next time something comes up, you say, hey, remember that time I told you about that? This is the same thing. And I'll be like, that might be. But if you tell them while it's happening, it's very difficult. I mean, just think about literally anything in our world and society right now where there's like divisiveness or whatever. Someone gets stuck on this idea that something is great, or maybe someone is dating somebody that you see is just not right for anybody, and they don't see it because they're too close to it. So inoculation, give them examples ahead of time, or in this case, after the fact, for the next time. I think you were first.
All right. What do you make of these websites that when you want to log into them, they say log in through Google, log in through Facebook? I never log into that way personally, but what do you?
I'm a big fan. Like he was talking about, it's tokenized. So eventually we're going away from passwords and having passwords. Although I use a password manager, I use 1Password, but there's lots of good ones. I mean, even Chrome, and they have their problems. Yeah, I actually went away from LastPass because they had their stuff all taken away. I am a big fan of that because it's tokenless, right? So again, you're hoping that this goes to the right place. So for me, because I use a password manager, I don't know what my passwords are. I only know what my password is to get in my manager, and that's it. I don't know what any of my passwords are. I intentionally went out of the way. You could hit me with a shovel, and I don't know my Google password. I'm sorry.
And so you're a fan of which specifically? You're a fan
What-
of,
I'm going through. So what'll happen is when I go and click on that link to sign in by Google or whatever, it'll take me to a site. And if I don't even look at it, my password manager will know if that's the correct domain or not. So I'm not typing in anything. My password manager will automatically be like, yep, this is a site that you already have pre-filled, and I can click it, use my finger or whatever, and I can log into that site. And I know that it's safe. Unless someone hijacked the domain, but then you're just already, I'm not gonna go into that. You're already kind of screwed at that point. So it's safer in the sense that if I know my login for Google, my email and password, and I click that and I don't use a password manager, then what if it is the wrong site? I'm just fingering it in, ham jamming it in, and I could have my stuff stolen. Because I use a password manager, it won't pre-fill if it's not on Google's domain. So I'll be like, that's weird. And then I look up at the thing. Oh, okay, well, it's just whatever. It doesn't have this one. Google's really good. They use like everything at Google. But some companies will use like, oh, it's Nike. Oh, this is NikeUSA.com. Oh, this is whatever. They change their domains a lot. So I'm a big fan of those because in that case, it is a tokenized thing. Without getting into too much of the details, right? They're asking Google. Google's like, yep, this person's good. Here's a token saying they're good, and then you're in. So I'm a huge fan of that personally. With the beard.
So from what I've seen, security is basically like a constant arms race in a lot of ways. And anecdotally, it seems at least social engineering, do you feel that it's gotten more of a threat over time than it has? Because anecdotally, I see that it hasn't necessarily become more sophisticated, but it's more prevalent than ever. Things are getting through spam filters and so all kinds of filters now that I just see it a lot more than I ever have.
So for online folks, he's asking if social engineering is becoming more of a threat or if anything's changed recently or anything like that. Is that what you're saying? Am I hearing that correctly?
Over time, because it's been around from, who knows, like, probably since ancient days, right?
Yeah, it's been on forever. We've all done it ourselves.
Now we're at this moment in time, is it becoming more of a threat that people need to spend more money, invest more against it, or how?
I feel that it's the thing that has changed everything. I mentioned earlier that I did some email campaigns, right, where I wrote emails. ChatGPT and others like it, Claude, other automated large language models that are out there. Has anyone here not played around with ChatGPT? I highly recommend when you go home today, just play around with it. Just ask it some questions. You will be shocked. It is literally autocomplete. It just kind of completes what it thinks you're going to say, but it's very spicy autocomplete, as someone once said. It is really good. You could tell it right now, hey, craft an email. I'm writing an email. You can like type it in. I'm writing an email to some friends for a birthday party, my 50th birthday party coming up, and I want to invite all my friends and tell them to bring this, this, and this. And it'll just tell it what you want to do, and it'll spit out a beautiful email. So imagine weaponizing that. And you can make your own language models. You don't have to use ChatGPT. You can make your own and host them yourself. I did not have this when I was doing my last email campaign, but man, would have been amazing if I had it. I could send out just literally thousands and thousands of emails that are custom crafted to this one individual that I didn't have to do. So in my mind, it's getting harder because it's getting harder to defend against because we have things like ChatGPT, because we have things like other large language models that can create so many different emails. Just a year ago, we would look at an email and be like, this is the same email they sent to 10,000 other people. But with ChatGPT and other large language models, you can create an individual email that's different for every single person in a blink of an eye. I don't know if you need to spend more money. I think the biggest thing is like inoculation, like even just coming here thinking about this just a little bit. This is just a hint, right, of some of this stuff. Just thinking about it and being a little bit suspicious about things and listen to your feelings, feel how you feel and look for red flags, you can help prevent stuff. If just a few more people did that, we could save billions of dollars. Just think before you click.
Yeah, we have a question online here. How do you feel about cookies and should you reject them?
My browser does it for me, but some cookies you can't anymore. If you really want to reject cookies, because you want to be that paranoid. You want to hop on Tor, and I'm not knocking anybody here. Get Linux, or specifically get like FreeBSD, and use Links, which has only HTML and nothing else. Or use Emacs if you want to have a new operating. That's I'm not going to get that debate. There are ways you can stop everything, but at some point, I drove here. At some point, you have to accept some risk. I always reject the cookies that I can, though, because I'm that guy. But my stuff's out there. It was different for me before I stopped being a police officer. I had my information was not public record. So in Texas, in most states, if you're a police officer or you're in the legal profession, you can keep all of your information from the registries, from your home registries, auto registries, political, whatever. You look up my name and it does not exist. You can look at the address and it just says private. And I'm not a cop anymore, right? So I understand I don't have the same privacy I used to have. It was very difficult to dox me back in the day because I was not only had that stuff going on, I was really good about cleaning all my information. You can reject the cookies, not reject the cookies. They're going to sell your stuff. If you don't reject the cookies, it's going to see every website you went to. It knows everything you're doing. And you know what? If you're looking for really cool stuff to buy that you didn't know you wanted, you got some spendable cash, there's a lot of really crazy cool stuff that you never knew you needed. It's like being 10 years old again with 20 bucks burning a hole in your pocket, and you're going to one of those stores in the mall that had all that crazy stuff. You didn't know you needed this whatever until you showed up and like, Dad, I've got to have this. There is some crazy cool stuff online that if you let them have your cookies, they're going to advertise so good you had no idea you really needed this object, because the marketing, it's all about money. It's all about money. Maybe you want to do that. I don't know. I don't, but use from the back.
So you mentioned that book. I know I didn't read that one, but I read another one. I read Past to Yes. Have you ever read that one?
Master Yes?
Past to Yes.
Oh, Path Yes. I've seen it. I have not read it.
Awesome.
I usually avoid, most of the books that I read are either historical books or like work related, like clean code, because it's fun. But someone kept telling me about and I've seen it forever, the How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's been around forever. I'm like, I'll read that one day. And then it was free and Audible for me, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'll listen to it. And yeah, it was fun. It was actually better than I thought. But you said that was called, the name of the book you mentioned?
I think it was Past to Yes.
Path to Yes? I'll look at it. Yes, sir.
That book, How to Make Friends, the author of that book, Dale Carnegie, he actually died alone.
You also do what?
He died alone.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. It doesn't mean that I'm the most popular person in the world. I used to have a mullet and glasses. Like,
It's just there's a whole bunch of books that are called anti-Carnegie, which debunk everything he says in the book. Just, if you're looking for more books to read.
yeah,
But my
there's,
question-
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I actually have an actual question. Can you share some of your failures, like when you try to manipulate someone?
Oh, yeah.
You're good.
I've been conned. So the very first time I remember being conned, I was in the 5th grade. I am 43 this year. 43? Yeah, you forget. I'm looking at the people who are gray hair like me. I just got a haircut today, so. I was in the 5th grade, and the kid next to me told me that if I memorized all of the words to Ice Ice Baby by Vanilla Ice, then Vanilla Ice himself would get us on a cruise ship and get us little mini cars for kids. And this made total sense. So I found the lyrics to Ice Ice Baby, and I still remember them to this day, because I was going to go on a cruise ship. And it wasn't until later, I forget what the kid said, but something got me to realize this kid can't not lie. I'm not a psychologist or whatever. I think he was a compulsive liar. He felt he had this need where he had to lie constantly about things that weren't important. He just lied about everything. That was the first time. But I do remember as a detective, I got conned, and I have a blog post where I detail this one called An Honest Liar. If you go to that website right there, you'll see it. And An Honest Thief, sorry. And it's about a thief. One of my first weeks as a robbery detective, He was arrested for robbery the night before. I was working day shift at the time. And we went in to interview him because we caught him red-handed. And the story is very interesting, but basically, he stole, but he didn't rob anything from anybody. And our victim, and it was my first experience learning that victims will lie because they're trying to hide why something happened. Essentially, this guy was at a strip club while his wife was in labor or something like that. I forget I didn't put that part in there, but it was like some details like this, like he should not have been in the strip club. He said, it's okay if you want, whatever. But he was like not supposed to be there. And so he made up his phone got stolen while he was smoking because he was out smoking in the smoke pit, trying to hit on one of the dancers. And the thief who was there was like, oh, he's going to be gone for a minute. And he left his phone, just took it and walked out. And so the guy called the police and said, someone stole my phone. He looked up Find Mine, found the thing, made this whole story about how he stopped to take a pee. And I used the Cotton Eye Joe example, where are you coming from, where are you going? Where if the cops had asked that question, where are you coming from tonight, sir? Really, he did this to you? And you stopped here to pee? That's really weird. You don't live anywhere around here. If they just say, where are you coming from? He wouldn't have had a good answer. Where were you going at this time of day? He wouldn't have had an answer. And I'm not knocking those cops, but they didn't ask any of those questions. So they arrested this guy because he clearly had this guy's phone on him. They arrested him for robbery, and he was a thief, but he wasn't a robber. And I've been lied to so many times by victims. And if you ever have any cop friends who are detectives, especially for violent crimes, they've been lied to so many times by their victims that if you're ever the victim of a crime and you talk to a detective who looks salty and they seem like they're just kind of really grilling you, it's because they've been lied to so many times that you have to convince them. And it's sad, but it's true. But once you convince them, we're like, yep, you actually were a victim of this crime the way you said it was, no one is a bigger advocate for you. And the problem is, like this guy who claimed he was robbed, he legitimately had his phone stolen, but he could never go to court because he lied. So when they go to court, you can't have someone who's a known liar on the stand. It'll never work. So it can never go to court. So they've ruined the whole case. And in robberies, we had home invasion robberies, which is when someone kicks in your door when you're there to steal stuff from you when you're home. This is super rare for the vast majority of people, unless you sell drugs out of your house, which Maryland now we can do it legally, but before people had to illegally do it out of their house, right? It's illegal. So you're not just going to leave your illegal drugs sitting around. You're going to take them with you in a safe with your guns and your money. You keep everything with you because you can't put it in a bank. So whenever someone kicks in your door and you are a victim of a crime that's way worse than selling drugs, right? Someone came into your house, maybe shot you or did whatever. You are a real victim and I want to help you. And it took a long time as detectives. Like if someone had a home invasion, I would be like, hey, I'm not saying you're dealing drugs, but if you are, that's okay. I'm here to help you. I just need the honest truth of what happened. Because if you can't be honest to me, I can't help you get justice. Because once you go to court, the person who put a gun in your face is way worse than you dealing something out of your house. So yes, people lied all the time.
The question was actually about something else. It's about
I'm sorry.
Your failures. How you failed to manipulate someone, how you got caught, and I'm asking from the defense perspective.
Oh, got you. So if I was trying to lie to somebody.
Manipulate.
Huh. I mean, there's lots of times I've tried to get my kids to go to bed. I think it happens every day and you don't think about it. I'm trying to, in my head, I'm racking my brain for something like a big thing, and I can't think of anything big. It's usually very small. But I'm trying to get someone to do something the easy way or my way or whatever, and they just reject it out of hand, and it doesn't work. And you don't really remember those times because I wasn't trying. When I've done the offensive stuff like he talked about, penetration testing, I've never done the in-person stuff, right? I haven't done that. So I haven't been rejected or caught like that. And then in my interrogations with people, I would rarely lie. One of the big tricks on negotiations and on interrogations is you only lie. You never get caught in a lie. If you're caught in a lie, you're done. That person, when the next time you arrest them, is gonna be like, that guy's a liar. Never get caught in a lie. So I'm really good about not lying to somebody. So getting caught is very difficult on that. I would only lie when it's something that I could get, like, hey, when I go watch the video of this, what's it going to show? I'm implying that I have video when I might not have that yet. But I didn't say I have it and I've seen it. I was saying, what's it going to show when I do it? So for me, most of the stuff is when someone lies to me and tricks me. Those are most of my examples. I don't have one, but I will think of one. And if I think of one, I'll put it on a post. I can't think of one right now. I think you had.
Yeah, we have one more from online. I just wanted to say, I think you inoculated the audience pretty well because I posted a link to the survey and everyone is convinced it's a scam, even though I'm the group admin. So maybe they're overly.
That's what they want you to think.
Yeah. So the question is, what common activities should not be done on public Wi-Fi?
Oh yeah, that one. I mean, besides the obvious, like anything illegal. It depends on the Wi-Fi. So 20 years ago, my answer would be completely different than it is today. Even 10 years ago, when we had Fire Sheep, right? It used to be most public Wi-Fi was completely free. It was using like a very low form of encryption that was easy to break, and anyone could break it, and anyone could see everything you were doing on the Wi-Fi because you were all on the same network. Now, with like most hotels, not all, but most have some basic security procedures put in place, and even the Wi-Fi router that you get at your home, and if it's been in the past 4 or 5 years, you have a newer one, or if you have a guest Wi-Fi, it automatically segregates everybody who comes on into their own private network. So you can't easily see and communicate with other people on the network. So for most things, public Wi-Fi is probably okay. That being said, caveat, 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 it's possible it's really old and everyone can see everything. But like I can't remember the last time I was on a public Wi-Fi that didn't have everybody on their own virtual network or VLAN. There's ways to check, but not easy for most people. So I would say don't do anything on your public Wi-Fi. And then we use encrypted. It's probably okay. We use encrypted sites. So if for the person asking this question, if you look at your web browser and you go to the top left, there's probably a little lock that lets you know if you're connected securely. If that's locked on, you're probably fine. People are going to know you went to that website, but they're not going to know what you did once you're there, right? So don't go to any websites you don't want your mom to know about. But once you're at the website, you're probably fine. So the answer is I wouldn't worry too much about it. Thank you. Yes.
Are we sure that he really lost his lanyard?
Yes. I actually scared a guy last year. There was some, again, at this building, I'm a contractor, so I'm a third-party contractor. I have the right badge, et cetera. And there were some interns that came in. I did not know this dude. I didn't see him. I know he's an intern. I know nothing about this guy. And he's walking around. He's lost. Like this. He has the classic, I don't belong here look on his face. And I just stopped him in total cop mode. Who are you and what are you doing here? And he almost started crying. He's like, I'm supposed to be with so-and-so. And I walked him to the front. And then someone was at the front waiting for his lost person. Yeah, I'll walk you down. I used to, I'm not in the shape I used to be. After I quit being a cop, I put on like 30 pounds because I'm not walking. I was on anyone been to 6th Street, Austin, Texas? I ended my career there as a sergeant. I got into more fights than any other sergeant in the entire city. I'm not bragging. It's just I'm there with my troops, and most sergeants don't do any work there. They just kind of let people do stuff. I like to work. I'm not afraid to pop in, and if someone's, because if they're legitimately there, they'd be like, yeah, this is my badge. This is where I'm at. We're really good at our company about getting rid of badges and notifying if someone has a lost badge. Like it's posted. So I didn't see anything like that. So if he has a badge, it's probably legit. But yeah, it could have been lying. Yes, ma'am.
So I have a meeting tomorrow that I'm looking at this about. A company that we work with wants to talk to me about some customers and get some insight about those customers. And I don't want to tell them anything because I want to actually turn it around and get insight from them on other customers. But I want to social engineer that. If I go to your website, will I get some good tips to try to figure out how to handle this meeting?
I mean, maybe. There's no ads on my website, by the way. I haven't even announced this to anybody. I just started putting some stuff up, some of my thoughts. Maybe. You might also be like, wow, this is terrible writing. How did you ever pass? My best suggestion, I wasn't always outgoing, and even I get nervous at things sometimes. Look at actors. I'm not saying to be an actor, but if you ever get in a situation where you feel like you can't handle this, act like someone who can, and just be an actor. You might be a bad actor, but just be an actor, because it's better than being the person who's going to vomit everywhere, right? And if you're really, really nervous and you start getting flooded with adrenaline, you can let that scare you, or you can enjoy it. If anyone here was ever an adrenaline junkie in their youth, or did crazy things, and I'm not saying some people here are young, but then you know what I mean. The adrenaline feels good. Use it, and then try to act. And try to act the confident part. Act the role of the person you want to be.
Social engineer, because I want to flip it around on them.
But if you make it too obvious, they're going to catch on to
I
it.
know.
So you got to think of ideas of like, well, what did the other person do? Like, you could always play dumb. Like, I just don't have it. What did that person do? Like, oh, because then they want to help you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. People like to help other people. Not everybody, but there's lots of ways. And sometimes they just know what you're doing and they're not going to do it. But yes, sir.
I know you gave some examples about like places where they use like soft and hard technique, like the job interview or an examination. But why, like, what's the main difference in terms of the effect psychologically on a person? Like, if you use like a hard technique versus a soft technique, will it like wall them off or make them more open to get their own personal information?
If the person, so the question was, what's the main difference? Is it like a pros and cons of using hard or soft techniques? This is for the folks online. It depends. So if you have no idea what you're doing and you don't even know it's called social engineering, you have no idea what you're doing, you're just thinking, I'm going to try to get information from this person. You're probably either going to be, hey, how's it going, man? Like real sleazy kind of, or you're probably going to be over the top the other direction. Hey, give me this information. Like doing stuff to like, I'm your boss or whatever. And it's not that either one is better if you don't know what you're doing. If you know what you're doing, you have to read the room, right? When I'm doing interrogations with somebody sitting down at the table, the first 10 minutes of me having a conversation with that person is get some basic facts out of the way, and for me to feel out, has this person been interrogated before? If this person has ever been to jail and they've had an interrogation before, it's going to be, they already know how that detective treated them. So then I find out, well, who'd you talk to? Because I know how they act. If it's someone that I've dealt with before, then usually it's really easy because I know I don't lie to them. Or rarely. They don't catch me in a lie. I haven't been caught in a lie as a detective. I think I had 3 lies I did, but I know I straight up lied to the person. I know that sounds terrible, but it was saying that I had video when we didn't have video about it. And it was worth it if you were the victim. But I know how I acted, so hopefully I try to get information how the other person act. And if they act, if the other detective or other person acted a certain way, and this person's expecting someone to be hard, then maybe I should just try soft, right? Or maybe I know this person responds better to a certain technique. Generally, I just talk like this. I try to be as factual as possible. I try to never lie to people if I can help it, unless I'm pretending to be something for somebody for like an email or something. I try not to ever lie. I'm not saying never lie. I'm just saying I try not to lie because then you don't have to remember anything, right? Just be careful about how you say things. And I try to just talk like a normal person like this and actually genuinely have some interest in them. Even if they have a story about why they robbed somebody and it's not defensible. To them it was. It made sense to them at the time.